Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. Tonight is the 2020 NFL Draft, and I am proud to be joined by Xavier McKnight, the X-Man, and Ryan Skolrud, our fantasy football guru. And you know what? These two are my favorite guys on this network, and I'm glad to have them on a show, let alone a very important show. So, guys, welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome.
Yes, thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Glad to. So anyways, you know what? I'll let you guys decide where you want to go with this thing, and I'm just going to go ahead and follow your lead. So who wants to lead off?
Xavier, why don't you go ahead? Yeah, go ahead and go. Go ahead with this one, Xavier.
So before we start breaking down the ins and outs of everything we think will occur tonight in the NFL draft, let's address the big elephant in the room in the NFL that also happened this week that's not related. Well, somewhat is, but not directly related to the NFL draft. That is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers acquiring future Hall of Fame tight end Rob Gronkowski in a trade with the New England Patriots. And what the Patriots gave up along with Gronkowski was a 7th-round pick. The Bucs gave up a 4th-round pick in exchange. But it's big news because Gronk had been retired now since Super Bowl 53. It came to its end. And he was involved in so many other projects, doing so many different things. Gronk had just recently become involved in the WWE. He's actually a championship holder there right now. He had been an analyst for the 2019 season on the NFL on Fox pregame show on Sundays, and he also had taken a huge role on the Thursday night shows. And all throughout last season, Gronkowski was very adamant that he was going to remain retired. He was done with football, and he was content with where he was. But there were always those little rumblings out there all throughout the season. Gronk could possibly come back to this. He could possibly come back to that. But he never came back in the 2019 season. So you thought, okay, maybe that really was the end of that, and you see him get involved in the WWE, and you hear those rumors out there about him possibly one day getting involved in the movies in Hollywood, and that stuff still might happen too. But lo and behold, Scott, Ryan, I'm looking on Twitter on Tuesday, and I just see the number one trend in the world is Rob Gronkowski. And I'm like, well, why is Gronk trending? And I look on it, and the first thing I see from Adam Schefter is the Patriots and Buccaneers are in talks of Rob Gronkowski being traded to the Buccaneers. Gronkowski has told the Patriots he wants to come out of retirement, and he would like to reunite with Tom Brady in Tampa. Just 15 minutes later, Adam Schefter came out and said the deal is now pending a physical, but the trade is done pending a physical. About 30 minutes after that, Adam Schefter tweeted, "Physical's done. Gronk's passed the physical. This trade is now complete." So I know everybody's very excited about what is potentially about to happen now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady gets a familiar face and a friend and a reliable target on third down and in the red zone throughout his career. And Rob Gronkowski, we all know the great things that they accomplished with the Patriots from 2010 until 2018. But I also saw something that was very interesting when Twitter basically lost control of itself on Tuesday evening when this trade happened. I thought a meme, and it really spoke volumes to me, and it really is probably a reality that nobody's really thinking about with this. And the meme was side by side. On top of it, you had Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady in New England Patriots uniforms. Then on the side of, below that one, you had Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce in Boston Celtics uniforms. Then on the other side, you have Gronk and Brady in, obviously, Photoshop Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniforms. And on the bottom of that photo, you had Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce in Brooklyn Nets uniforms. And I don't want to be a party pooper to everybody on this, but I believe the latter half of that is more than likely what is the more realistic thing to occur here. Don't get me wrong. I know Gronk's been out for a year now. He's had time to heal up, get his body together. He is putting that weight back on that he took off of his body just to get more lean and just to allow himself to heal properly throughout last year. But that doesn't dismiss the fact that Rob Gronkowski has a scroll list of injuries, and Tom Brady is 43 years old. And as exciting as it is for Tampa Bay Bucs fans, Florida Suncoast fans in general, Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, Sarasota, Bradenton, this entire area here, you have to be realistic about what's going to happen here. Yes, there's still Chris Godwin. Yes, there's Mike Evans. For now, there's still O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. I still have my questions about the O.J. Howard thing. I know we're hearing that a trade is unlikely at this point. I believe somehow, some way, he's going to be in somebody else's uniform before the season does start. But Ryan, let me get your thoughts first on this. What was your initial reaction to hearing Gronkowski is coming out of retirement and being traded to Tampa?
Well, for me, it was Tampa is going to have to trade one of their tight ends. With three of them of that caliber, it would be irrational to not trade either Cameron Brate or O.J. Howard. I think they would get more out of O.J. Howard if they were to trade him. That being said, they may just hold pat with what they've got. Hearing that Gronk was going to Tampa Bay, it didn't surprise me. From a fantasy perspective, I still think, I'm with you on that laundry list of injuries that Gronk has had. It's so much to deal with. He's had multiple ACL. I think at least one ACL. He's had a shoulder surgery. He's had a punctured lung, broken ribs. I mean, he has seen the gamut of injuries just because he's a physical player. And because of that, that's why he's been as injury prone as he has over his career. I think that he could be somewhat productive. I'm not looking for him to be anywhere close to what he used to be. I mean, I think a good comparison would be what Jimmy Graham has kind of done over the last couple of years with in his last year with the Seahawks, and then over the last was a year or two with the Packers. I'm not expecting a lot. There's not a whole lot of tread left on those tires. I think that he will be serviceable more from just an NFL standpoint than from my neck of the woods doing a fantasy aspects. But I definitely think that he could be helpful to Tom Brady, providing that familiar face to throw to. The other thing that doesn't get talked about this a whole lot in this whole thing is people wanting to get out of New England. And you've heard the stories of some like minor players that kind of minor role player type guys that I never had fun playing in New England. Yeah, we went to a Super Bowl, but I never had fun. I hated playing football. And then they go to another team that may not be as good, may get to the playoffs, but they enjoy playing football again. And I'm wondering how much of this is Gronk was done playing football in New England. I mean, you look at his persona outside of the arena is just, he's crazy. You got the the WWE, you've got the acting and all this kind of stuff. I think that he may have felt like he was just done. And now that he can be in Tampa Bay with Tom Brady and be more of himself, more of a character, I think, that could be could have been a big factor in this as well.
Well, Scott, before we chime in and we get your thoughts on this, I'm going to piggyback off of what Ryan said there a little about, yes, it does speak volumes about what's going on in New England.
Right.
Because obviously Tom Brady was a huge name that they lost this offseason. But they lost so many other players that helped make up the fabric of the Patriot way for the past few years, and guys who were big playmakers for them, most notably losing Kyle Van Noy and other players. Now, those players, it should be noted, most of them either went to Detroit, where Matt Patricia is, or to Miami, where Brian Flores is. Those are Patriot guys. Those are former Belichick assistants, now respective head coaches in the league. But with that being said, I mean, that is something that was alarming to me on Tuesday with the Gronkowski trade. The fact that he was willing to come out of retirement only to go to Tampa Bay and play with Brady, it does speak volumes about the culture that has been built in New England, for how people really feel about the way Bill Belichick runs the team. And, Scott, first I'll pose this question to you.
Sure.
Out of every NFL dynasty that you've seen throughout your lifetime, because you've seen most of them, out of every dynasty you've seen, have you ever heard of any of those other dynasties, whether it's the Steel Curtain of the 70s, the 49ers of the 80s, the Cowboys of the 90s,
Right.
This team wasn't exactly a dynasty because they didn't win 3, but they did win 2 in a row. And if John Elway comes back, they could have possibly won 3. Who knows?
Right.
But the Broncos of the late 90s, have you ever heard of a team having this much chaos and dysfunction from within, or having this many problems to where players would say, I want to continue playing, but I know I don't want to play here. I want to go somewhere else where it's fun.
Well, number one, I'm not really used to 2-word answers, so this may be a real and a rare. How do you like that, Xavier? Okay. Absolutely not, with an exclamation point. Now, I can't believe this, Xavier, but you took the words out of my mouth about where the exodus is going between the Miami Dolphins, the Detroit Lions, and the Tampa Bay Bucks. I guess you kind of wonder, the kicker was Steven Gutowski. Who knows? Maybe he'll be the next guy to go to Tampa since they've had kicking problems. I think the one thing we have to really look at from this trade is not only the impact Gronkowski will have, but let's check over the next 3 days, who is New England going to draft with that 4th pick that the Buccaneers dealt, and who will the Buccaneers land with that 7th pick? You know, is there a hidden gem later in the draft so that when you can grade this trade, you grade it not only from an immediate impact but down the road? I think that's the intrigue for me because you guys cover everything else.
Well, here's what I'll say about the Bucs. One thing I know that they're going to walk away with from this draft, they're going to walk away with better running back play, but they're going to try to find it there, whether it's a guy like DeAndre Swift, the running back out of Georgia, or Jonathan Taylor, the running back out of Wisconsin. And that's one thing Gronkowski is going to help improve on. Those running backs, they're going to come close to having at least 1,000 yards, if not over 1,000 yards this year, because even if Gronkowski cannot be a huge playmaker as far as being a pass-catching tight end anymore the way that he once was, he's going to be a great blocking tight end. That's something that he will continue to excel at and continue to be great at. But, you know, you brought this up, and, you know, here's another question that's on my mind here, and I'll pose it to either one of you.
Okay.
What we've known, at least Ryan and myself, throughout most of our lifetime, and even you as well, Scott, when it comes down to Bill Belichick. But, Scott, you can speak more to this a little more than we probably can, what I'm about to say. What we've known about Bill Belichick, at least for most of my lifetime, New England Patriots, Patriots way, Super Bowls, more rings than anybody. Are the Patriots and Bill Belichick in particular, maybe this isn't just a 1 year off. Maybe this isn't going to be an easy fix like everyone thinks. Perhaps is he about to now head back into a situation very similar to what he was in with the Cleveland Browns in the early 1990s, minus the dysfunction that was around the organization?
Well, I guess to answer your question, Xavier, if you're looking for a prediction out of me, I think they're going to be either 7-9, 8 or 9-7. So I think Belichick's going to have to do his best coaching job. I really do, and I would lean more toward 8-8, possibly not making the playoffs. No, I mean everybody got tired of him, and we'll find out how good of a coach he really is.
My quick thought on that is I could still see them finishing 10-6 and possibly getting a wild card spot, simply because of the fact of how tough that defense was all last year.
Right.
And you know, coming from, you know, living in Seattle and seeing, you know, living with the Legion of Boom for that season of time, you know, the defense really can make up for some inefficiencies on the offense. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the offense. You know, you got to remember we're talking about a coach that, after losing Tom Brady in the first quarter of a season, and in really Tom Brady's prime, you know, was able to take Matt Castle to 11-5 or something like that.
Right.
So I still think, and back then, again, they were more known as a defensive team that had a very solid offense.
Right.
So I think that as long as they can keep that, you know, that as their identity,
Right.
They should still be okay, but they are going to need to get a couple more weapons for the offense.
Well, not only that.
You know,
Not only that. Sorry, Xavier. We're going to find out how good Jared Stidham is. Is he the sleeper quarterback there, or will they take a quarterback later in the first or second round? I mean, I guess those are some things that we'll have to keep an eye on. All right, go ahead, Xavier.
Well, it should be noted that reports have surfaced out of the New England and Boston area that Belichick was running an offense that was fit to do what Tom Brady liked to do, and they do plan on exploring more with that offense, with Josh McDaniels leading the way going forward this year. So it'll be interesting to see what they bring to the table. But as of right now, in this moment, and this is me saying this before the NFL draft even begins, you guys are saying 7-9, 8-8. Ryan, you're saying possibly 6-10, 10-6.
No, 10-6.
I'm actually, you're saying 10-6. I'm actually saying I don't see where they finish any better than 6-10. They have a lot of holes on that team that they have to fill, and they lost a lot of players on that team who weren't just great at doing their job on the team. They were great leaders in the locker room as well. So I'm just having trouble trying to figure out whether they're even going to finish 7-9 or 8-8 or even possibly a 10-6. You know, we'll just have to watch what they do in this draft to possibly fill some of those holes. But this really feels like it's going to be even more of a scale back year than we may even anticipate it's going to be.
Well, Xavier, did you say 6-10, or did I misunderstand it was 10-6?
No, Ryan said 10-6. I said 6-10.
That's what I thought.
I don't see it right now.
Me either. I don't. Remember, Brian Hoyer's your backup quarterback, so just can't forget that either. So, is he worth 1 or 2 wins? How good is Stidham? Where are they going to get the next quarterback? They have more questions than answers for the first time in quite a while.
Now, with that being said, that's not going to put Bill Belichick on the hot seat unless he decides to walk away.
Right.
That's one thing we'll go ahead and we'll just throw completely out of the loop there.
Right.
But I believe that it's going to take at least another good 2 drafts and 1 complete offseason without the guys in the fabric who have helped build the Patriot way for so many years for them to actually try to get that team back to something close to what we've known it to be for the better part of 20 years now. I believe the New England Patriots are going to have a year very similar to what the Golden State Warriors were having in the NBA before the suspension of the season happened due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But I don't think it'll be nearly that bad, but it's going to be something that we're not used to seeing.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just put it like that.
Well, I'll even say this, Xavier. You're right. Belichick will never be on the hot seat. He has a job as long as he wants, but I can't believe you threw the Golden State Warriors comparison because for some reason I do agree with this. There's going to be a serious regression based on all the bodies that have relocated and the fact that you may be looking at a degree of rebuilding there. And here's the biggest thing that we can't forget. Okay, the Patriots could be rebuilding. Let's not lose sight of the fact that Buffalo and Miami figure to get better, and they start to catch up with them. Buffalo with Stephon Diggs. Miami, who knows what they're going to come up with over the next 72 hours.
And the wild part to watching all of that is the New York Jets. Because I still believe in Sam Darnold. I still believe Sam Darnold is going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. The only question mark is going to be, is Adam Gase the fit for him? We'll see that coming up this season. But I believe they're going to be a wild card pick in there. Because it also should be noted that a lot of the draft picks and a lot of the free agent signings they had last year, they were injured for most of the season last year. Outside of Sam Darnold, C.J. Mosley missed most of that season last year. I'm not sure what to make out of Le'Veon Bell at this point. I don't know if we can expect something better out of him if that offensive line continues to improve or not. I was never a fan of him taking a full year off like that anyway. This is the NFL. This is not the MLB or the NBA. It's not really logical necessarily to do something like that and think you can come back and still play at that superstar level. But with that being said, I expect the Jets to draft a running back somewhere in this draft even if it's in the later rounds. And I expect them to be one of those wild card teams in the AFC East. Not saying a wild card team for the AFC playoffs, but I believe they're going to be the team that's going to give that division some trouble seriously this year. I mean, listen, as tough as this is to believe, as tough as this is for us to even admit, there is a possibility that the Patriots could finish in last place in their division this year.
Well, when you talk about taking a year off or being one guy that comes to mind is Des Bryant. You know, when he came back after that long hiatus, that didn't work out. What was it? The first play guys that he practiced in New Orleans, and he was done. So, you know.
Yeah, tore his Achilles.
Right. So there you go. That validates your point. All right, go ahead. Continue on, guys.
So, you know, speaking of the New England Patriots, and this is also going to segue into where we should take this conversation next, they did make a free agent signing today. It will be viewed as a minor signing, but if he can remain healthy, it could end up paying big dividends for the future. I'm talking about Marquise Lee, the ex-Jacksonville Jaguars receiver. He agreed to a one-year deal with the Patriots earlier today. We don't know yet if that is a move that they plan on making for the 2020 season, or if he's one of those signings that, you know, they may just have there for training camp, because Belichick does have a history of doing that. But it's very interesting to see, you know, what type of move they could be making there. I don't believe that's one of those chess, not checkers moves at all.
Right.
I just simply believe that's a depleted team trying to now fill in some of the roster spaces where they see that they can. So segueing now to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay.
And, you know, Scott, we did our mock draft last Friday on the Real and the Rare.
Right.
Last Saturday, rather, on the Real and the Rare.
Right.
And I had the Jaguars staying put at number 9, and I actually had them drafting Jerry Jeudy.
Right.
Well, reports have now surfaced within the past few hours that Dave Caldwell has been on the phone with Bob Quinn in discussions about seeing how they can possibly move up from 9 to 3 to get the 3rd overall pick. And clearly, they're not moving up to 3rd overall to try to get Jerry Jeudy in that draft anymore at that point. So, just you being around the team, Scott, what exactly do you think Jacksonville will do if they are able to get that number 3 overall pick?
Well, in my mind, it becomes Tua. I really think it's Tua. I don't see Justin Herbert there. I mean, you talk about Justin Herbert, you may be looking at Blake Bortles or Blaine Gabbert, but Tua's Tua's only issues are his medical issues, which are unfortunately a big risk. You follow what I'm saying? So if you can get around, when you talk about potential and comparing the tail of the tape between Herbert and Tua, I think it's a no-brainer. I want to make one point about Marquise Lee, Xavier, and I'll stay on this. You know, again, you're talking about a player who missed a substantial amount of time to injury. He was a good player. They just couldn't keep him on the field. So, yeah, it was definitely a minor signing. But right now, New England needs whatever they can get. Back to what we were talking about here. Okay, I think that the Jaguars would probably consider taking Tua Tagovailoa, or maybe they might go after Jeff Okudah because they lost some help over at the quarterback position with the trades of A.J. Boye, and they've lost Dante Fowler. That to me would be an intriguing name if they don't go quarterback. So it just depends on what the draft haul is for the Lions and how many first rounders that they acquire. But for me, it would be Tua. If not, I think Okudah would be the next logical spot for them.
Okay, Ryan, so now let me pose the question to you. The reason I had them taking Jerry Jeudy number 9 overall anyway was because I thought, okay, they're going to give Gardner Minshew a true shot at this. But to see and hear that the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing everything they can to try to move up to that number 3 spot in the draft, what does that tell you about how the Jaguars feel about Gardner Minshew?
Well, it is somewhat concerning. I think that I think that they're back and forth. You know, we saw, I'm sure you saw the reports, even was it a week ago, that it seemed like they wanted to make it work for Gardner Minshew, really wanted to see what he could do. Honestly, I think that it's very possible that they could be going to especially with some of the other teams that are up close, and looking at trying to get into that number 3 pick. The Dolphins are, another one of those teams not wanting to be leapfrogged by someone in a trade. So I could definitely see Tua. I mean, one of the I want to say it was Ian Rappaport, when he talked about the Jaguars possibly moving up, he thought it could be for a left tackle to help solidify the offensive line, in order to give Gardner Minshew more protection. I see that as a possibility. I have not seen in any of the mock drafts any of the offensive tackles going quite that high in the draft.
Well, there are quite a few mock drafts out there with offensive tackles going within the first 10, first 15, first 20 picks of the draft.
Yeah, I just never seen them at like number 3 or 4.
Yes. And now I'll throw this question back over to Scott, because he's very close to that Jacksonville Jaguars situation with the great coverage that he provides for that team. When the season came to an end last year, Scott, did you walk out with this initial thought that, you know what, they're going to try to get this Gardner Minshew thing a go? Because I believe we all knew it was a foregone conclusion. Nick Foles and that big contract was not coming back.
Right.
I think we all pretty much knew that, even though it wasn't really being said. But we saw what Gardner Minshew was able to do just a little with that team last year. He did well the first time around with them, but when Nick Foles was able to get back healthy and get back out there on the field, and they saw that it wasn't working out, when he came back, I mean, the team had pretty much been torn apart at that point. The Jalen Ramsey trade had been done. Yeah, Yannick Ngakoue, who did not play last season, he was still publicly demanding for a trade. Leonard Fournette didn't want to be there anymore. Like, Calais Campbell was on his way out of the door. Like, so much going on with that team. Are you surprised to hear that they may possibly want to move up in the draft to this point to probably try to find the next franchise quarterback?
Oh, no way. No, I mean, listen, Gardner Minshew did a really good job. And you got to remember, the one thing we can't lose sight of is, if you want to take a shot at Tua, you think he's your man, fine. But the guys that are really out there lurking for backups right now, don't lose sight of the fact that Jameis Winston is out there. Cam Newton's out there. So, whatever happens tonight will probably decide where those other guys are going if they drop their asking price. So there's a little intrigue both on the veteran side and all. But no, I think Tua is definitely a possible catch for them at the number 3. And you got to remember, you're talking about a fan base which has been ravaged by all of these trades and breaking it up. So I think Tua would breathe a lot of life into that fan base. I don't see them going up to the 3rd pick to take an offensive lineman. You're looking for an impact potential playmaker is what you're looking for. And now I definitely think they're not going to take Judy at 3. There's no way, because I think Judy could slip down to 9. So no.
Oh, yes, I definitely see him slipping down to 9. I definitely do. Didn't mean to cut you off there, but
that's okay.
I don't see him being traded up as far as number 3 at this point. Wide receivers, I mean, we don't see the perimeter players get drafted that high anyway, and there's not really one in this draft that just is like has that. There's no way this guy is going to be a bust type of potential. That guy isn't out there on the perimeter this year in that draft, at least not so far from what we see. Now, of course, these guys get out there on the field, and we actually see what they are. We see what they're about. We see what the work they've been putting in. That's gonna tell the story in all of this anyway. But when it comes down to Jacksonville, we applauded this team for getting everything that they were able to get for Jalen Ramsey.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were able to get a haul of picks for him. But now I'm just sitting there and I'm like, clearly it feels like Dave Caldwell and head coach Doug Malone are now setting the foundation in place for the next group that's going to come in and be over that organization, because I don't see Jacksonville having a great season this year unless they come out of nowhere again. But I just don't see that happening, and I believe they'll receive their walking papers at the end of the season.
Oh, no doubt about that. I think that Marone and Caldwell are definitely either you better get me up to at least mediocrity or you're gone, because then mediocrity meaning 8-8 means that you're positioning yourself that's the only way they keep their job. It's funny how you say that, Xavier. I talked to Dave Caldwell during the season last year, and, as I was walking into the locker room, and I tell him, Dave, I got to tell you something. He said, what's that? You fleeced the Rams like I've never seen a team get fleeced without. Oh, when you traded Ramsey for those picks, I just told him I hope you can cash in on them. And, he looked at me and said, yeah, I hope you're right. And he gave me a nice smile, but it's the truth. You want to talk about, and now look where the Rams are. They're in a little bit of turmoil, but as they're unloading players. So when you look at the initial impact for that Jalen Ramsey trade, the haul for Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Jaguars better make those picks count. And yes, I totally agree that Caldwell and Marone are clearly on the hot seat. And there's no Tom Coughlin to blame this time.
No. Ryan, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to add in on this?
I'm opposite side of the country from the Jaguars thing. So, I think you guys are pretty much the experts on that one. I'm more hearing some more of the rumblings from up here and kind of other areas of the country. So, today was the first time I had really put that much into what exactly what Jacksonville was doing, and especially when we got the tweet that they were trying to move up to number 3. So.
Now,
let's move to it. Well, go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
Was there talk, though, guys, that Yannick Ngakoue, that the Raiders are kicking the tires on that? Do you have anything that you have on that you can enlighten us on?
I have not seen anything from the Raiders yet. I've got to dig a little bit deeper on that one. Okay. I know the Seahawks have been one of the teams that have been big or has been rumored the most about being a good fit for him, simply because of the desperate need for a pass rush that the Seahawks have had after being one of the worst pass rushing teams last year, and now Clowney wanting as much money as he did, as much as he does. The Seahawks have moved in a different direction. They do have a fair amount of picks that they could send to Jacksonville for him. But then again, we're also looking at, after that, have to work on a deal for him as well. So okay. I don't know. Yeah, so I haven't heard much. I haven't heard much on the Raiders. I know the Seahawks, like I said, the Seahawks have been attached to him, most of the offseason.
Well, I had heard that was something they were talking about today. But then again, anytime you're about an hour and a half before the draft, you're certainly going to hear things that you hadn't heard in quite a while. So, yeah, you're right, Ryan.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have more clarity in a matter of a few hours on that.
Well, here's what I'll say about that. I haven't heard anything in particular about Yannick Ngakoue and the Raiders either. However, with that being said, I was watching the Herd earlier on FS1, and Colin Cowherd did receive a text message from someone on his phone while they were filming the show live, and all he mentioned was Raiders could be something interesting happening there. So, okay. I mean, obviously that kind of tells us a little of what's now going on. Right. There was no other information given out after that. But, I mean, I'm not surprised to see that at all. John Gruden and Mike McKnight, they're now in the stage where they're trying to get that team to the next level. And if you can get other impact players in the league without having to necessarily develop them through the draft, go ahead and you go for it at this point. The Raiders were one of the biggest surprise stories in the league at one point last year before the wheels completely started to fall off there towards the end, but that doesn't surprise me at all.
I don't think there's a better talent evaluator out there than Mike McKnight, Xavier, Ryan. And this guy here has seen it from all levels. Was he a broadcaster for Notre Dame football for a while? He's been around the NFL circles as a broadcaster. This guy knows how to judge talent inside and out. So I give Mike McKnight all the kudos that I can. And I think the Raiders, I can see the Raiders continually, if not this first year, that I can see them as a 10-win team next year. So,
well, before Ryan chimes in on this, Scott, we're talking about the Raiders. I just received a notification from Bleacher Report, and it reads that the Raiders are shopping starting guard Gabe Jackson, and the asking price is not high.
Really?
Well, that's interesting because what we know about Jacksonville is they need to improve that offensive line as much as they can.
Right. Well, there you go. You were talking about an offensive lineman possibly being taken by the Jacksonville Jaguars. If they can get one like this, they still have to focus on what their clear objective is. So if you're saying that the asking price isn't high, do you dangle one of those Rams draft choices over in that direction and to pick up a player and still focus on what they need to do? That's an interesting question.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, how desperate are they going to be to get Giannis Ngakoue out of their organization? I mean, we've already talked about the public trade demands that have happened on Twitter that happened throughout the 2019 season, that happened before the 2019 season.
Right.
What we haven't spoken about is the public beef that he was in on Twitter earlier this week with the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, his son.
Right.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, right.
Earlier this week.
Well, let's face it, Xavier. He's working on getting his ticket out there. I believe the Jacksonville Jaguars are still waiting for the deal, but there's no question the guy will be moved. The only question is, I think if he's going to get moved, it'll be tonight while you have the draft capital to get it. Otherwise, I'd find it hard to believe that they would try to get draft collateral for 2021. So if a deal gets done, I think it gets done tonight. So I think it's very strongly possible, Ryan and Xavier. I really do.
I just wanted to throw out one quick thing that I saw just basically officially come out.
Okay.
About we're talking. We haven't brought up the Bengals at all.
Okay.
They have basically said they have gotten a lot of interest, especially from the Dolphins over the last few weeks, about possibly giving up that first round, that number one overall pick, and the Bengals have basically come out and said, we are not trading the number one pick. This is what we are going to keep our pick. And they have spent over the last month using every minute they have allotted in order to spend time with Joe Burrow. I mean, I think it's, we pretty much all knew that it was already a foregone conclusion that they were going to take Joe Burrow, the new Tiger King.
Right.
But I think this pretty much, I think it's officially now sealed the deal with multiple sources all over. They're going to take Joe Burrow number one.
Well, as you said, I mean, we pretty much known this all the way all along. What we've also known all along is, despite all the other conversations that were had throughout this entire process this offseason, we knew that the first two players to be a lock were Joe Burrow to the Bengals, Chase Young to the Redskins. I never bought into the Redskins possibly looking into Tua or looking into possibly drafting another quarterback because they're not sure about Dwayne Haskins. I never bought into that at all. Ron Rivera is a defensive head coach. He has a chance to get a defensive playmaker to the likes of a Chase Young. And we saw what Ron Rivera was able to do for so many years with some good defenses down in Carolina and having an impact player like Luke Kuechly. I expect there to be a similar impact now with a defensive player like Chase Young as well.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, no debate there.
So, let's move on now to another area in the country. Speaking of quarterbacks in the NFL draft,
Okay.
It's getting hot and spicy in Dallas right now. And just a few days ago, it did come out that the Cowboys could potentially be looking to draft a quarterback in the second or third round of this draft. Well, just within the past few hours, something else interesting took place with Jerry Jones reportedly asking the scouting department of the Dallas Cowboys to not disturb him during tonight's draft, according to a report from ESPN. So that tells me that a quarterback is more than likely going to be taken in this draft, whether it happens tonight or whether it happens tomorrow. I would bet more on it happening tomorrow if I were a betting man. But things are clearly not well with the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I was just kind of going back and looking through some of the reports as well. Jerry Jones has always been a my way or the highway type of guy. And if they're not able to find any, if they have not been able to find any kind of common ground with Dak Prescott, it does not surprise me that they are going to be looking in the second or third round possibly for a quarterback. Looking at the list of quarterbacks here, obviously we know Joe Burrow Tua, and Justin Hebert. Those three most likely are going to go in the top 10, probably even in the top 6.
Right.
After that, I could see another quarterback not being taken until the second round, which would leave guys like Jordan Love, Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason, Jalen Hurts, those kind of guys in that second or third round that could be interesting targets for the Dallas Cowboys. And a couple of those have a similar play style as Dak Prescott, so would fit the offense well, as well as just in general, would be cheaper, which I know would be a help to Jerry Jones in his dollars and cents mind.
Well, Ryan, you just hit a bullseye on this one. Jalen Hurts, to me, I think is going to be the wild card story in this draft. You're right, similar playing styles. It's not like the Cowboys haven't scouted him a little bit north in Oklahoma, right? So, and they, of course, an Alabama player, and he's had a lot of national games as well in high-pressure situations. So, Dak Prescott better not overplay his hand, because I don't know how much he thinks he's going to get. I realize he deserves to be paid, and he deserves to be paid a fair amount of money, and he's been on a bargain rookie contract, but don't overplay your hand in this league, because you know what? At what point or another do you overpay on one position, and then you don't have the ability to fill out that roster? And again, I keep saying, what about Cam Newton and Jameis Winston? I don't know why I keep bringing them up, but they're out there, as insurance policies. But Jalen Hurts, to me, is good. I don't know a lot about Jake Fromm, but I know, and Jacob Eason, but again, they're out there as well. And you don't know what other late round quarterbacks you'll see in rounds 4 through 7.
Well, let me go back to the Dak Prescott thing really quickly before I tell you who I believe the quarterback to watch for the Dallas Cowboys to possibly draft is on tomorrow night. Not only that, Scott, not only should Dak Prescott watch how he's playing his hand with the Dallas Cowboys and potential of other players getting paid and there not being any money for him to get paid at all, what other team is there for him to seriously now go to at this point?
Correct.
What other team besides, Jacksonville, we know they need a quarterback, but they're not going to trade for Dak Prescott. Miami, Ryan Fitzpatrick is not the long-term answer. We suspect that they could possibly draft a quarterback tonight. They're not drafting a quarterback. And who knows what's going to happen in New England. So it's not really a quarterback-rich market out there in the NFL right now as a need for a starting quarterback as much as it once was, or as much as it would have been this time a year ago.
Right.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how this entire thing plays out. But I believe Jacob Eason is actually the name to watch. I believe he's going to be the name to watch for the Dallas Cowboys. Scott, I agree with you with Jalen Hurts being the wild card, picking all of this.
Right.
But looking at Mike McCarthy, that system he likes to run, he likes gunslingers. And one thing about Jacob Eason, he's got a big arm. Jacob Eason has a big arm. I was able to get a front row seat of this when he attended the University of Georgia before transferring over to the University of Washington.
Up in my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. But I don't believe that Jalen Hurts is what Mike McCarthy is going to be looking for in his system. I believe he's going to be looking for somebody like a Jacob Eason, because another thing you have to look at, who he has out there on the perimeter of the offense.
Right.
You've got Amari Cooper who can flat out run and fly down the field. And you've also got receivers like Michael Gallup who can also do the same thing. So he's going to be looking for ways to really get those guys the ball, and not in those short, slant, 10 to 15-yard routes. No, he's going to want those 30, 40, 50-yard routes. And if the quarterback is there that no one's really speaking about that has the arm that can do it, it's Jacob Eason.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yep.
Ever heard of Brett Favre?
No.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Aaron Rodgers?
No.
Okay, well then I definitely am suffering from a disease called dumb Dementia, spelled Dumbmentia. And I made that up. I don't think it's an English dictionary, but guess what? It's in our dictionary for at least tonight. And yes, Xavier McKnight, the word gunslinger nails it right there.
Yeah, Easton has an absolute cannon of an arm. I know that there was a lot of speculation. Watching him up here in Seattle, he could fit throws where you would never expect a throw to get through.
Right.
Between defenders, and just seeing the strength that he has in his arm is phenomenal. One of the things that has been a little bit of a knock on him is his touch. Yes, he has a cannon. Sometimes he has a little bit of some touch issues, though at the combine there was at least one, if not two, different scouts saying that he was throwing a lot of dimes out there during the practice sessions. So he is very much that gunslinger, throw it hard type. It'll definitely be interesting to see where he goes.
I don't know. I kind of have to lean toward what Xavier. Xavier's convinced me this is a good place for him to go. And the biggest thing that Dak Prescott could do is he could be overplaying his hand, just like Davian Clowney. I realize he deserves to be able to hold his price and get as much as he can, but with all due respect, you have another one. What is he going to do? Sign a franchise tender to play one more year and try to test it again? You still need a long-term answer at that position if Dak decides to bolt at some point. And anytime Xavier says that Jerry Jones's scouts stay away, I'm making the call, well, then you know what that means? QB. I don't want to know exactly what letters, if you had to numeralize the alphabets, but QB, figure it out. But that's where I think Jerry's thinking as well. So, yeah, no debate there.
All right, now let's speak about the New York Giants really quickly, a team in the NFC East right there with the Dallas Cowboys. It hasn't been much of a conversation, but it's now starting to come out a little more today. The Giants in that number 4 overall pick, it could be had for the right price. It'll take a haul to get it. And, some of the teams we've been hearing that have been looking for ways to move up in the draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars, also the Atlanta Falcons. Do you see the Giants possibly staying put at number 4, Ryan?
I could see them, if they don't get the right package, yes, I could see them staying there at number 4. I've done a couple of mock drafts. I've got to look back to see who I actually gave to them at number 4. But again, I think if they, if something happens with that number 3 pick that's unexpected, I could see them being a little more working hard to try to move down to get some more draft capital. But I honestly think I could see them. It never surprises me to see teams trading down. Again, I'm being up here in Seattle and with the Seattle Seahawks, who have traded down their first pick in the draft every year since 2012. Nothing surprises me in teams trading down. Now, who goes up and takes that pick could be the surprise. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them trade down, try to collect a little more draft capital, try to collect a little more talent and protection, around Daniel Jones, provide a little bit more of a solid offensive line for Jones and for Saquon Barkley. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them trade down especially with some of the offensive talent in this draft, not quite that top of the draft talent, but kind of that mid to late first round into the second round, those kind of guys. I could see them trading down to get a guy they like down there.
Yeah, see, here's the thing we can't lose sight of. Dave Gettleman has something in common with Doug Marrone and Dave Caldwell. He's also on the hot seat. The Giants haven't been relevant in a while, so unless, like you say, Ryan, he gets an offer he can't refuse. This is one of those pressure picks. He must get it right. He really does. You provide your quarterback with a playmaker. You protect him, or an offensive lineman if you think there's a standout one out there. Again, we'll know probably in a matter of an hour, out in 60 to 90 minutes. But Dave Gettleman's under pressure to get it right too. How much more time do you think the Mara family's going to give him? I don't see a whole lot. Again, some of your decisions are going to be made are okay. It's one thing it's a rebuild, but you guys are on year 3 or 4, and as a result, either you get it right or you won't have a chance to get it right next year, at least with us.
Yeah.
So,
Totally agree.
okay.
I would agree with that as well.
I mean, I'm not sure what the Detroit Lions are going to do. That's a mystery in its own self.
Well, there hasn't been any more talk since, we've been on the air with this about anything else with that number 3 pick.
Oh, there hasn't.
But, as we've been saying, we're just going to have to watch and see all of this play out. Now, Ryan, maybe you'll be interested in hearing what I had taking place at that number 3 overall pick in my mock draft. And it really gave Scott a couple of things to think about, to say the least. So, with my number 3 overall selection in the draft, what I actually had the Detroit Lions doing was swapping picks with the New England Patriots while also getting some other draft picks to go along with the package. And with that 3rd overall pick, I had the Patriots drafting Tua, and I had Jeff Okudah going to the Giants at number 4.
Wow.
Yeah, well, Xavier, I can tell you how to spell intrigue. INTRIGUE. So if you want a little bit of intrigue, and anybody's up this late, at least that one's more sensible than Max Kellerman telling everybody on national TV what a goofball he really is. That Matthew Stafford will get traded to New England. Please, I can't see that, especially when the general manager and the coach are in deep trouble anyway. So, I don't know. If Tua lands with New England, then, I guess it's possible, but we'll have to find out what New England can really offer back. I don't know how many picks they really have, but I would think to make a move up that high, the Lions better get at least 2 or 3 first-round picks somewhere to give up a prime pick at number 3.
And see, I believe the Lions are in a similar position that the Jaguars are in anyway. No matter what happens tonight, unless there's a miracle of a season, the coach and the general manager, they're obviously making selections for the next regime that's going to come in.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is the last chance for Matt Patricia to really try to get this thing right this year. But he's done absolutely nothing to give me any hope that that's going to happen.
Well, he's done a good job running players out of town and getting hammered on social media. I love the pick of Tease Tabor, the number 2, second-round pick out of Florida. How did that one turn out? You can't make mistakes at number 2, guys. You just can't do it. Number 1 is a killer. Number 2 and 3, but especially number 2. If you can't hit on those 3 rounds, you're in real trouble. It sets you back a long time. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
What about you, X-Man?
Well, I'm in total agreement with you right there, too. I mean, I believe Jacksonville and Detroit are going to have new front office leaders and new head coaches on the field next year anyway.
Well, no question about it, yeah.
So we're just going to have to wait, and we're just going to have to see what exactly is going to happen tonight, what's going to happen going into the 2020 NFL season. But it's definitely going to be intriguing, to say the least, especially with Gronk coming out of retirement, now going to Tampa Bay. I will not refer to this as Tampa Bay. I will not do that. This is still Tampa Bay.
Right.
And, everything that we're looking forward to with the NFL draft tonight. My question is, Scott, since you brought up Jalen Hurts, where do you think he possibly ends up in this draft? What team do you think could possibly end up drafting him?
Well, I'll give you 2 places. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Hurts actually lands in New England or Pittsburgh. That would be my best guess. And everybody's talking about New England, but I still think that Jalen Hurts is a sleeper. I don't know if he's a sleeper, but he's a dark horse. And if he lands in a situation like New England, I think he would be every bit as adequate. He would give that offense something different, more mobility. I like Jalen Hurts. Don't ask me why, but I really do. Or I think he lands at Pittsburgh, because you have to wonder about the durability left and the miles on Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, he's got a lot of miles on him. I know it's painfully obvious that the Steelers need to figure out the next step in the quarterback progression after Ben Roethlisberger, because Mason Rudolph is not it. I care whoever their other guy that they had after Rudolph, when Rudolph went down. Those are not the answers. They need a solid player. I think Hurts could be a good position there. Ben has always kind of had a little bit of that gunslinger mentality as well. Not able to move around as well. He's kind of he was a little bit of a don't take this the wrong way, but a Cam Newton type in his ability to get the short yardage when needed because of his size. And really that, hampered the rest of his career. Early in his career when he would do a lot of those QB sneaks to kind of get get those extra yards and stuff. So I think that, I really think that Pittsburgh will take a quarterback sometime in this draft. It'll be interesting to see kind of what type of quarterback they take, because there's multiple styles of quarterbacks in this draft.
Well, there are.
Well, I like the potential of Jalen Hurts possibly ending up in Pittsburgh. I also like the potential of him ending up in New England. Steady ownership, steady management, steady coaching. I'm going to throw two more destinations at you guys, just simply as a possibility.
Okay.
San Francisco and Seattle.
Interesting.
I've seen the Jalen Hurts to Seattle thing a couple different places up here. It definitely is an intriguing possibility as someone to kind of learn behind Russell Wilson. I don't think Russell Wilson's going anywhere. It could be that Jalen Hurts, they get him to a point where he's possibly someone they could trade for draft capital later. Unless the absolute worst thing happens to Russell Wilson, I don't think that they I don't think that they trade him. I don't think they move him anywhere, because they have structured his contract in a way that it becomes very team friendly in the second half of the deal. So, I think right this year, because of the way his roster bonus and everything went, he's guaranteed like $67 million this year, which has already gone through.
Wow.
And because of the way that it's structured, it's averaged almost $40 million, or was right around 40 a year. Because of that, the way that it's structured, it's only worth I think his cap hit in year 3 is $33 million, and his cap hit in the last year of the deal, in the fourth year of the deal, is $32 million. Which when we get to that point, because of all the contracts with media and all of those, and the expanding legalization of gambling in the states, that's going to bring more revenue into the NFL. That's going to be used in the profit sharing for salaries. Is going to raise the salary cap, and so that deal is going to become even more user friendly and team friendly towards the end of it. So I don't see them moving on from him, especially with the way they have his contract structured. So Jalen Hurts is an interesting prospect for Seattle. But I think he would be better off. Somewhere like a San Francisco, where I don't think everyone is completely sold on Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Well, out of those 4 places I mentioned, 3 of those places for sure, he wouldn't come in and be the guaranteed starter on day one. He wouldn't be the guaranteed starter in New England, Pittsburgh, or San Francisco, and Seattle. Well, let me rephrase that. He wouldn't be the guaranteed starter in Pittsburgh, Seattle, and San Francisco.
Right.
With the quarterback situation going on the way that it's going right now in New England, we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be there.
That's very true.
It's going to be Jared Stidham, but we don't know that for sure. But the reason I throw San Francisco out there, and Ryan, you already alluded to it, everybody's not all in on Jimmy Garoppolo. I believe Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have a bounce-back season next year statistically. I believe he was coming off of a season where he had a torn ACL, and it usually takes a year to get back to being yourself again anyway. And it's that second year after the injury where you usually come back and you start putting up those numbers that you were putting up before. So I believe Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be okay, but you have to have an insurance plan in case these guys were to go down.
Oh, no
I
question.
believe Jalen Hurts would be a great insurance.
Yeah, no question about it, Xavier. I think that the New England Patriots would be the ideal place for Jalen Hurts to get to start. The other three, I'm not so sure about. Again, everything, though, depends on the injury situation to Ben Roethlisberger. If he gets hurt, he starts. If he doesn't, that's another story, but that's what we'll have to find out. But I think the most logical destination, I really, for some reason, let's say take Jordan Love, would be New England. I just can't seem to break that one, guys. I can't.
Well, I definitely could see it.
Okay. So where are we going next? X-Man?
Right. Ryan, you take the floor from here. I'm interested in seeing any talking points that you have.
The other things that I was gonna bring up, one of the things that we were gonna look at just as an overall, not necessarily specific teams. One thing I was gonna take is San Francisco. They have the 13th round pick that they got in a trade with Indianapolis, I believe it was. They actually have been, rumor has it they've been taking calls on that number 13 pick. So it'll be interesting to see if they move. Okay. And we've been kind of talking, who could move up, who could move down with trades and everything. This is an article on my website that we've kind of gone over, is, with being from Seattle up here with the Seahawks, where I've mentioned before that they have every year since 2012 they have traded down their first pick in the draft. How is that going to be affected this year when you have the virtual draft? You don't have everyone together in the same room. You don't have a single unified war room. It's going to be a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how much trading actually gets done. This year with just a whole. It's going to be a whole different experience.
Well, I think a lot of your trades are going to get done actually before the draft starts, knowing that there's this uncertainty about the virtual thing and how it's all doing. I know that these teams have had until Monday to try to work out the kinks, and they have tech departments. But my gut feeling is before the first pick is made, a lot of key choices will have already been swapped. That's just my feeling. So, if any team, by now, these teams have talked to one another all day. Again, as we get closer to time, we'll find out whether it was talk or whether it was hearsay.
Right. I'm definitely in agreement with you guys on that. Also, Ryan, the big question I have when it comes to Seattle and all of these teams, but especially Seattle, especially you bringing up what they've been doing since 2012, moving down in the draft. Have they actually had the time to actually properly scout the players out the way that they normally have? You see, with the pandemic going on and everything like that, we don't know if these teams have actually had a chance to actually get the look at the players at every position that they want to get a look at them at. We know they can't do it face-to-face. So with them now more than likely having to do things remotely and virtually, as you said, how is that going to impact some of the moves that the team makes? In my mock draft, I had Seattle actually staying put at 27.
Okay.
Who do you have them taking?
Right. Who?
Do you have the?
I had them taking an edge rusher. I don't remember exactly who it was, but I had them taking an edge rusher because I don't believe that Jadeveon Clowney will be back, even though the conversation is being had that the door is open for him to come back to the organization if he brings his asking price down. I'm under the impression that he won't be back.
So if that's the case, Xavier, where do you think Jadeveon Clowney is going to go?
I actually see him being a New York Giant,
really?
Believe it or not. Okay. I really think somehow, some way that deal's going to get done. I believe he's going to be a New York Giant unless they surprise everyone and they take a pass rusher or two pretty high in this draft. I believe somehow, some way he's going to be big.
I can see that. I definitely think that the Seahawks are, again, they're open to it if he drops his asking price, but I do not think that Jadeveon Clowney will be a Seahawk this year. I've done a couple of mock drafts. I know that a lot of people have speculated and wondered if the Seahawks would take one of the top running backs in this draft. Jonathan Taylor has been linked to them a couple of times. And the reason that I think that it's possible that they could take a running back and is because they like shocking people with their picks that don't always make complete sense. Yes, the Seahawks have a massive need in terms of their defensive line and needing to rush the quarterback. That being said, you look at the quarterback situation where Carson has yet to play an entire season, had a season-ending injury last year with a hip break. You had Rashad Penny, who tore his ACL. You have CJ Prosise, who's not even likely going to be on. I don't even think he's on the roster anymore, who is always injury-riddled. The next running back that they have is Travis Homer, their 7th-round pick from last year, who did okay as a fill-in when needed, and he was able to kind of run angry, could catch the ball out of the backfield, was able to serve as a kick returner. But with all the injury history, I could see them going after one of the top running backs. Well, maybe even trade back and pick one.
Boy, you make a compelling case for me on that one, Ryan. Boy, I'll tell you. What do you think, Xavier? Do you think Skolrud nails this one? Jonathan Taylor in Seattle?
He makes a compelling case. I can see where it could happen if it ends up happening on day 2. I don't see Seattle Seahawks taking a running back.
Right.
Probably if they don't take one tonight, I could see them trading back because of maybe an edge rusher that they like is still on the board and they think could fall. Again, depending on how trades happen. It's amazing how fluid the NFL draft, especially day 1, is. I could if one of the running backs were to maybe fall, I could see them trading back and maybe getting one tomorrow. If they do make their pick tonight, I don't think it'll be a running back. I think it'll likely be either an edge rusher or possibly an offensive lineman. They do need some help in the secondary as well, just for some depth. But I think that'll probably hold off till day 2 or 3. So day 1, if they make a pick tonight, I think it'll be defensive line, most likely an edge rusher. If they trade back, I could definitely see them taking a running back early tomorrow.
Okay. Interesting. All right. I don't have a comment. Now you just got my wheels turning a little bit more. I don't need caffeine to get my wheels turning. I got you guys doing it instead. Very interesting. All right. Now I'm wondering, will the Seattle Seahawks take a running back later? And you know what? Anytime a good playmaker goes later in the first round, then you figure that could be the steal of the draft. So, yeah, sometimes I wonder, are your best quarterbacks taken in the first round? You got to remember one stat. Only 40% of the quarterbacks drafted in the first round actually stay with their teams for a while and are productive. The other 60% are hit and miss for various reasons, whether it's skill, whether it's injuries, or just not living up to their potential. So there's a lot of and a lot of that's attributed to the systems that they fall into and the coaching strength of the coaching staffs.
Yeah. The only other thing that I had really had as a talking point to really look at tonight, it's been mentioned a lot. I know that with Marquise Brown being the cousin of Antonio Brown, the Ravens possibly needing another wide receiver just because they have so much youth. They don't have a whole lot of, they've got some good role playing type wide receivers in that offense, but they don't really have, like the stud number 1 that a lot of people would consider. It's possible to see the Ravens maybe move up depending on what their draft capital is. That it was actually said that the Ravens were actually in the possible trades for DeAndre Hopkins and ended up missing out when that trade finally went from Houston to Arizona. So it is very, very, again, with all the talk of Antonio Brown and all this stuff, I could easily see the Ravens, even with some of their other needs, linebacker depth and that sort of thing, I could see them taking a wide receiver in this draft.
So let me ask you guys a couple questions. First, and I got like three. So number one, I know Nick Saban is hoping the Miami Dolphins take Tua, but we can't forget the animosity that took place when Saban bolted from Miami over to Alabama, and you wonder whether or not that would factor into it. That's number one, because there's no love loss for sure between those two places. What do you think?
Well, you brought in the Nick Saban factor there with Tua possibly being tied in there with the Dolphins. That's something I had not even thought about.
Right.
But the place where I believe Nick Saban honestly would be the happiest if we were going with the New England Patriots,
right,
considering his friendship with Bill Belichick and the history of that organization since Belichick has been there.
Right. Okay. What do you think, Ryan?
I think it's interesting. I really do think that Tua most likely goes to Miami.
Yeah.
I think that it's possible. I think they're going to take a quarterback with their first pick, whether they trade up to get that, to get Tua, or they sit at number 5 and get him there, or possibly, or maybe, I've also seen reports that they've kind of left the whole Tua thing, out, that Tua is not necessarily the direction they want to go.
Right.
Perhaps it's Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they go that direction instead,
right,
which would possibly lead Tua to go to San Diego, because I really don't think that San Diego is really that happy to have Tyrod Taylor as their starting quarterback this year.
You mean the L.A. Chargers once upon a time?
Yeah.
Well, then again, we all make that mistake.
Whatever that Chargers team is.
Exactly. Well, although you wouldn't know with the amount of San Diego people that drive up to L.A. to see him. So let's talk about 2 wide receivers. I think we both have talked about it on different shows, so let's corral it into this broadcast. We talked about Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs. Both good out, and I saw them play the Wolverines over in the Citrus Bowl. Where do you think their next area code will be for both of those 2 guys?
Go ahead and take this one.
Honestly, I think the wide receiver that I like the most in this draft is CeeDee Lamb, and I've seen him mocked multiple times to Arizona. Now I understand they just got DeAndre Hopkins, and they have Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald's at the end of his career, and if you've got a guy like CeeDee Lamb that you could pair with DeAndre Hopkins, have Fitzgerald in the slot,
mm-hmm,
and they still have a couple other wide receivers that they've spent some draft capital on that could be other possible role players. CeeDee Lamb has the connection with Kyler Murray, being his main wide receiver 2 years ago in Oklahoma. So again, that's something that I thought was interesting there. I could see someone like Jeudy or Riggs going to Denver is definitely one spot that I've seen. I'm trying to. I don't have that note in front of me exactly where I had them, but Denver I think is definitely looking for a wide receiver. So one of them could end up there as well. So.
Okay. I mean,
the three teams that I'm looking out the most for when it comes down to those 2 wide receivers, Ruggs and Jeudy, as well as CeeDee Lamb,
right,
to potentially end up. I'm looking at the Raiders. I'm looking at the 49ers. I'm looking at the Broncos. If anything, I believe the better half of Jeudy and Ruggs will be on the Denver Broncos, with the latter half going to the San Francisco 49ers, barring that they don't trade that 13 overall pick. And I think CeeDee Lamb actually ends up in Philadelphia. And I think that's the best situation overall for him to possibly end up going on.
Yeah, As far as Judy, I know there's been talk about him going to Jacksonville, and Jacksonville certainly could use another playmaker for Gardner Minshew or whoever ultimately takes over that quarterback position. But again, that's all dependent upon whether they move up in the draft to get other players. Because I know the Jaguars certainly need another playmaking wide receiver. And, of course, the one thing we can't forget about is the future of Leonard Fournette, whether they're going to go after a running back as well in Jacksonville. So, again, Fournette is on the trading block. The question is will anybody take him? So there's another intrigue in terms of the running back position where you have a guy making $4.17 million this year with an $8 million cap hit. Any thoughts?
Well, that is going to be a potential move to look out for. I believe it's one that will happen a little later on in the offseason because, this time last week I was all in on Leonard Fournette being moved before during the NFL draft. I don't see it happening anymore now.
Right.
I see them more so concentrating more on getting Jonathan Godway out of the door. That's what I see them concentrating more on. And eventually Leonard Fournette will be moved. And I think Jacksonville will draft a running back in this draft, but I don't see that happening tonight. If anything, the running back selection of the draft, I'm more in on tomorrow when I believe teams will be selecting running backs.
Good point, Xavier. I thought so too. And I think the one thing about the running back position, guys, it's being devalued anyhow. How much mileage and how many years can you get out of these guys? And, there are very few Christian McCaffrey contracts that I think are going to be handed out. I really believe that. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that the running backs more will be. I think that maybe one, maybe two may go tonight. I don't think it won't be more than two, if it's two.
Right.
It's also possible that we don't see a running back go tonight, and they could all be tomorrow. So I think that one could go tonight. I think that Jonathan Taylor, I think is the likely one to get drafted first, but it could be Swift. It could also be Swift out of Georgia. It kind of depends on who's drafting, which team is wanting the running back, and what their system is going to decide what running back they take.
Well, yeah, another point though worth mentioning though, guys, for teams that have multiple first round picks. That's where I could see maybe a running back or two getting snapped off the board. Otherwise, I would probably lean towards what you guys are saying for day two.
Especially a team like Miami that has 3 picks.
Exactly. Or if Detroit gets 2 or 3 based on what happens with the number 3 pick. And then I'm just using it. And Detroit needs running back help too, because everybody knows that Kerryon Johnson has injury problems, and the Lions haven't been relevant at that running back position for quite a while.
Correct. And with Miami, they're right now their only option at running back is Jordan Howard, who has been extremely productive and even showed last year that he could be used a little bit more in the passing game than he had been in Chicago. But he's still been known as not having the best of hands. He could be it could be that Miami adds a running back that could be more of a pass-catching type, kind of that Tariq Cohen type to use along with Jordan Howard in their offense.
Right. Well, okay. Covered it pretty good tonight, haven't we, guys?
We definitely have, and in my mock draft, I'm not exactly sure where I had Jonathan Taylor going, but I can tell you, Ryan, I had the Rams actually going from one Georgia running back to another. I had DeAndre Swift falling to the Los Angeles Rams in the second round tomorrow.
Wow, that's interesting.
I can definitely see that. We've covered that situation on our website a little bit, and that's definitely while it's possible that they could still be semi-happy with Henderson and with Malcolm Brown and John Kelly. It wouldn't surprise me at the same time to see them actually take a running back.
Yeah, no, that's true. The Rams let Gurley go, so again, there's another team, and let's not lose sight of the fact they get a decent running back. They're moving into a new stadium, but they have fans in there, so you certainly want to be able to give the fans in that building in their first year, should indeed there be a season with fans. You'll sell a couple tickets along with hopefully securing that position for at least a few years.
Correct.
Any other?
No, I'm in total agreement there as well.
Anything else you guys want to add?
That covers
I'm going to say right now tonight about the Miami Dolphins, where the three big moves I expect them to make with those 3 first-round picks, if they do keep them all. There's going to be a quarterback drafted at some point, and I actually have them taking 2 offensive linemen because they have to fix that line.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question. Okay, we've talked about quarterbacks all night. So this is something that I'm really curious about. Josh Rosen is number 2 on the depth chart. Where do you think he winds up going after the draft?
to the shipping yards. I don't know. I think that he was a guy that wanted to prove himself. Wanted to prove that he could be a guy. I think that he hasn't been in the best situation. Starting out with just a terrible Cardinals team that just was not very good at all, and then getting traded to a Miami Dolphins team that was terrible and just not very good at all. He hasn't exactly had the opportunity to really prove what he can do if there's a solid team around him. If he actually has an offensive line, which neither of those 2 teams had. Had solid running back play, which at the time neither of those 2 teams really had. So the question's still out on that, and all I can say is I have no clue.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him land in a decent situation for a change, so there's got to be a team willing to take him. I mean, you're right, Ryan. First of all, he was considered the franchise QB in Arizona. Then Miami, I thought he'd get more opportunity there. But yeah, I think that's another name that could be bannered around after the draft. And who knows if he's involved with trade talks.
Well, I'm in total agreement with Ryan on this one. The only potential team that I could have maybe thought when it came to Josh Rosen, maybe that was the New England Patriots, but I see them putting more of their focus on the quarterback in this draft if they do choose to draft the quarterback in this draft. And Josh Rosen is pretty much similar to the Dak Prescott situation where I said, I mean, you look around the league and you have to go, who needs a quarterback in this league? But it's different in the respect of Josh Rosen just needs a spot. He just needs a roster spot. Dak Prescott's the starting quarterback in the league. Josh Rosen would just be looking for a spot in the league where he could potentially become a starting quarterback, whether that happens next season or in years to come. I'm going to throw a wild card team out at you guys to just see how you feel about this.
Okay.
Look for Atlanta to possibly be in play for a backup quarterback to Matt Ryan.
Okay.
I can see that.
You can't depend on Matt Sharp. So that's one situation where I could see it happening. Anywhere else, I'm not exactly 100% sold on. But Atlanta is a place that comes to mind for me.
For Josh Rosen? That's who you think?
Yes.
That's interesting, too. Yeah. I still think Josh could play in this league. He just needs to be in a situation that makes sense. And he hadn't had one in 2 years. He's not a bust by any means. Just give a guy an opportunity, for crying out loud. The talent's there. Give him a coach. Give him a legitimate system. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I could definitely see that. So I think that would be an interesting spot for him to end up.
Atlanta? Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Also, another place that could possibly come to mind for me is maybe even the Houston Texans as a backup for Deshaun Watson, because we saw Deshaun Watson already go down with an injury in Houston before, and we know what their quarterback situation looks like when you remove him from the equation. So, those are the only 2 places that come into mind for me.
Yeah, that's really the only places I could see him going.
Okay. Well, we have a lot of interesting things that we've talked about tonight. We've talked about whether it's Josh Rosen and the different quarterback scenarios, running backs, and I guess it's going to be interesting to see how it ultimately plays out a little bit in a little while. So, anything else you guys want to add?
That's all I've got.
What about you?
No, that's all I have. And, we're just a little more than 20 minutes away from the draft starting, and all I can say is I can't wait.
All right, well, just so everybody knows, you're listening to the Sports Exchange on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network, and you are listening to us live. So we have the X-Man, Xavier McKnight, my fantasy guru, Ryan Skolrud, and I am the Motor City Madmouth. So with that said, okay, first of all, we hope you've enjoyed our NFL Draft special tonight, and that you'll go ahead and take the opportunity to like it, download it, listen, and retweet it or share it, and subscribe to our network. But meanwhile, Ryan, why don't you go ahead and lead off and let people know how they can get a hold of you?
Well, they can get a hold of us by either going to SkolkingSports.com and checking out the website there. They can also find us on Twitter at SkolkingSports, on Instagram, SkolkingSports, or they can go to SkolkingSports at Facebook as well to find our Facebook page. And those are the best ways to get a hold of us.
Go ahead, X-Man.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at XCMCKNIGHII. That's 2 I's. You can find me on Instagram at XCMCKNIGHII22. And you can friend me on Facebook and also follow me on LinkedIn simply at Xavier McKnight.
Okay, and as for us, you can go ahead and like the South Florida Tribune page on Facebook. You can also like it on Instagram. On Twitter, my personal handle is Scoop with 5 3s. And if you want to follow the South Florida Tribune at Tribune South, if you want to email us about the show or any shows that we do here, feel free to do so at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. All these broadcasts can also be, as well as some of our other content, is on www.southfloridatribune.com. We have a lot of great contributing writers. We have a lot of good media distribution partners. We pretty much have you covered around the country, and I can't lose sight of the fact that we have Reuters. So we hope that everybody's enjoyed our draft special tonight. I should point out that we hope we've actually been able to provide you with some good, solid entertainment. And most of all, I think you guys can agree that we hope that everybody stays at home, they stay healthy, they practice social distancing, and kudos to our first responders. Anything else you want to add, guys?
That's it.
Yes, of course. We hope that everybody is remaining safe, healthy at home, and practicing social distancing, and not panicking, and not living your lives in fear, and just understanding that we're all going to get through this, and sometimes don't last, but some people do it.
All right, well, meanwhile, guys, it's been a great broadcast. I'm looking forward to following this one up after the draft, so I need to put you on the spot to see how well our projections really are. That's called a report card show, right, guys?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, well, we'll make it happen. Meanwhile, once again, on behalf of Ryan Skolrud, the X-Man Xavier McKnight, this is Scott Morgan Roth, the Motor City Madmouth, wishing you a good night and enjoy that 2020 NFL Draft. Too bad it's not in Vegas, but I know they'll get another one down the road. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.